The Silver Blade and the Magpie's Blood. Copyright. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents either are the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. Copyright C 2025 by Izaic Yorks. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced or used in any manner without written permission of the copyright owner, except for the use of quotations in a book review. For more information, visit IzaicYorks.com or email at Izaic@IzaicYorks.com. Prologue. Dead! The magpie's dead! Slain by a justice of the High King! Impossible, Lotus wheezed for the third time. Just shut up and run, Dravian hissed, his boots hammering against the tunnel floor. Behind them came the shouts of men, and worse, even Dravian couldn't believe it. His father, dead, gutted like a fish. No trial or representation. But that was how the High King's justices worked. Oath-sworn, bloody kingsmen, tasked with hunting criminals to the ends of Ithos. And if the justice catches us, I will be next. The thought made it easy for Dravian to ignore the burning in his legs and the searing burn on his cheek. Father was no mere criminal. He was the gods' given magpie. There were supposed to be deals, insurances. Either the High King had grown tired of the Shadow Kingdom, or this justice had found a hole in his oaths and come against them of his own volition. Either way, Dravian and Lotus were running for their lives as everything around them burned. Smoke filled the tunnels of the Nest, a monolithic palace carved into the sewers of the capital. By the time they reached the Court of Fools, thick blankets of black had swallowed the halls. Dravian threw open the chamber doors. Relief rushed through both men. The dry cistern was clear of smoke, the vaulted ceiling venting the choking dark up to the world above. Lotus pointed past a pair of colonnades and to an iron door on the far side of the circular chamber. The magpie kept a langboat in there. I have the key. He flashed a brass strut with a single tooth at the end. Their footfalls echoed off the stone as witness to their flight. Fitting the key into the lock, Lotus had just opened the door when their pursuers burst into the cistern behind them. In! Lotus shouted, shoving Dravian through the door as the twang of crossbows sang. Diving in, the bald eunuch slammed the door shut, sliding a heavy iron bar into place as several bolts thudded against the other side. This won't hold the justice for long. Let's hope it's enough to make our escape, Dravian said. Sniffing the air, he looked around, his eyes adjusting quickly to the gloom. A whisper of air stirred the stillness. A distant trickle of water echoed off the stone. The darkness was total, except for a faint blue glow hanging in mid-air, or rather, bioluminescent lacquer on the magpie's riverboat railing, creating the illusion of something suspended in the void. They scrambled aboard the shallow craft. Dravian struck a lamp. Light swelled and the shades retreated, revealing a narrow tunnel and a sluggish black river vanishing into the shadow. He didn't know where it went, but if he knew his father, it would lead them to freedom. Lotus crouched, sawing at the mooring rope with his knife as the sound of banging ensued against the door. When the final strand snapped, the boat rocked free. "Work the punt," Lotus said, his voice ragged. "The river'll carry us, but we need to reach a stronger current." Dravian reached past the eunuch for the long-pronged pole and froze. His eyes trailed from the punt and to Lotus's arm, clamped tight over his side. The eunuch was trying to hide it, but the sway in his posture and the blood soaking through his linens told the truth. "They shot you." "It passed clean through, chick," Lotus muttered, sliding down to rest his head against the boat's rail. He licked his lips and closed his eyes. Dravian cursed and knelt beside him, but Lotus pushed him away, leaving red smears on Dravian's fingers and face. "Get to work, chick. I didn't take that bolt for no reason." He grunted. "I promised the magpie I'd keep his heir alive. You have to survive, for vengeance, for your father's honor." Dravian clenched his jaw, muscles tight. From behind came the sound of groaning hinges and bending metal. "You'd better survive this," he muttered, grabbing the punt and jamming it into the riverbed. The boat lurched forward. With the growing current beneath them and Dravian's rangy muscles at work, The boat gained speed, fast enough to match a galloping horse, and just in time. A flash of silver burst into the tunnel where they'd fled. Howling, a wolfhound made of glowing ethereal light stood on the far bank. A familiar. Its eyes, silver and still, locked on Dravian, its master, no doubt, studying him through the creature's gaze. Onwards, Lotus murmured. Dravian raised a rude gesture toward the beast, then gave one final heaving thrust of the punt, allowing the rushing waters to take them, and collapsed beside Lotus. The eunuch let his head rest on Dravian's shoulder. The touch raised goose flesh. He had lost count of the times he'd leaned on Lotus as a boy after a scraped knee, a failed lesson, or a cold dismissal from the tower. In many ways, Lotus had been more a father than the magpie himself. Dravian listened to the man's breath thin and rattling, like wind scraping sand. Death was close. He knew it, but refused to accept it. "You always did think too much, chick," Lotus said, patting Dravian's thigh. "You've got all the talent to lead the nest, but you've got to do as much as you think." His voice faded. The boat rocked on the strengthening current, the sound of rushing water swallowing silence. "Lotus," Dravian whispered. A shallow inhale, a man drowning in air. When Lotus spoke again, his voice had changed. No longer the father figure, but for his last moments, the teacher. "Veritalis has hundreds of underground lakes and rivers. Your father dammed this one to stop it from flowing into Lake Medina. It lets out miles south into the heartlands. Go, hide, and when it is time, restore the nest." Dravian nodded, feeling the strength drain from Lotus's voice. "So it shall be," he whispered, massaging the man's cold hand. And when the eunuch drew his last breath, Dravian added, "You and father will be avenged."